The film begins with Ciro walking around his neighborhood in Buenos Aires. He is a robber who breaks into cars and steals the stereo. Ciro discovers a pair of Ray-Bans in the overhead compartment's pockets. During his robbery, he suddenly feels that he must pee. He pees all over the back seat instead of outside. Welcome back to Every Frame. Today I'll be showing you 4x4, a 2019 Argentine-Spanish crime thriller film. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. As a result of which the vehicle stinks, he's still not satisfied with destroying the car and getting his pee all over it, so he scrunches his buttocks and farts. He then considers his work completed and attempts to depart. But, to his surprise, the door does not open. He tries to open the remaining 3 doors, but fails. He then tries to open the car's trunk, for which he must move to the back seat that contains his pee, and he moves back forcefully and tries his best to open the truck. He is unable to do so and instead becomes filthy and stinky. As a result, he panics and frantically attempts to break the car's window, but is unable to do so. However, Ciro does not give up and destroys the interior of the car door. He then puts his hand inside the door and attempts to open it, only to severely injure himself. He begins to bleed, but the car door remains closed. Ciro pulls out his gun and fires at the front window, but the bullet rebounds and impales his thighs, causing him to scream in agony. Ciro, who is bleeding profusely, removes his shirt and tightly wraps the wound to stop the bleeding. Ciro has avoided being seen up until this point, but after shooting himself, he tries to attract the attention of someone outside the car to assist him in getting out of the car. Fortunately, a woman appears outside the car and begins applying makeup using the car window as a mirror. Ciro attempts to call for assistance, but it appears that the woman outside the car cannot see or hear Ciro. He screams, but she walks away without looking back. Ciro then tries to call his wife, but the phone's battery dies at that precise moment. After all of these failed attempts, Ciro falls asleep. The next day, he wakes up thirsty. He's out of water and has no choice but to lick the fog from the window. A few moments later, he pulls out the same car stereo he stole previously and fixes it to listen to the radio. He hears his favorite song on the radio and loses himself in it, partially forgetting his problems. Despite the fact that the song is about sexual activity in the car, it describes Ciro's current situation, as in foggy windows, reclined seats, and staying up all night, and it inspires him to try opening the door again, attempting once more. When he hits the door with a tool, a phone inside the car rings, and a man speaks on the other end, welcoming Ciro in his car. The man introduces himself as Dr. Enrique Ferrari, and says he owns the SUV. He also claims to have been robbed 28 times in his life, with Ciro being thief number 29 to attempt to steal his property. Ciro, enraged, demands his release, but Enrique shuts him down. Enrique then reveals that his 4x4 car has an alert system that is linked to his phone and allows him to control all of the car's features. He also claims that the vehicle is impenetrable and that he cannot move it from within due to active suspension. Dr. Enrique also claims that the car is noise-canceling, that all of the windows and the front windshield are polarized, and that the only thing that isn't bulletproof is the fuel tank, which currently holds 120 liters. Enrique warns him that a full gas tank is a bomb, and that if he does anything stupid, the car will explode, killing him. Ciro is perplexed, but Enrique claims that he is a widower, was born in Quilmes 60 years ago, and had a typical childhood belonging to a middle-class family. His house's doors were never locked, and that his current situation is so bad that he wishes his life could be like his childhood. He asks Ciro what he would do if he discovered his son was stealing. Ciro is irritated and threatens to report Enrique to the police. Ciro tells Enrique that he wants to murder him and his entire family, but Enrique cuts him off before he can finish. Enrique turns on the air conditioner and lowers the temperature to torture Ciro. Ciro tries but fails to turn off the air conditioner. Ciro is forced to remove his shirt from his wound and wear it. Ciro then tears a piece of his jeans and tightly wraps it around his injury to stop the bleeding. After a while, Enrique calls him again and asks him what he would do if he caught his son stealing. He promises to give him water if he correctly answers the question. Ciro responds, but it is insufficient for Enrique. Ciro begs him to stop, saying he has learned from his mistakes. Enrique is unconcerned and tells Ciro about his other story. He reveals that two guys broke into his daughter's home last December. He also says she avoided direct eye contact and always carried money for similar situations, but the training was insufficient, and the robbers held Enrique's grandson for 3 hours. Ciro, on the other side, is uninterested in Enrique's stories and asks him before hanging up what kind of doctor prevents a wounded person from drinking water. Enrique congratulates him on the question and asks him to guess what type of doctor he is. Meanwhile, a police car arrives and stops in front of Ciro's SUV, and he attempts to draw the officer's attention with his rising hope, but the officer instead issues a ticket to the SUV and departs. Enrique calls again a few hours later, this time asking Ciro's full name and ID number in exchange for water. Ciro obeys Enrique, who directs him to the water in the washer hose. Ciro notices that the water is light blue, but due to dehydration, he doesn't care and slurps it, breathing a sigh of relief. However, Ciro is still hungry, and he eats an insect flying inside the car. After some time, Ciro examines his wound and discovers that it has turned yellow, and he also has a fever. Seeing this, Enrique gives him a break and turns on the air conditioning for Ciro to cool down. Enrique also reveals that he is sick. Enrique then says he is dying of cancer, and the doctor says he only has a year left. Ciro takes off his outfit and passes out as Enrique continues to ramble. Ciro's skin is also turning yellow. After some time, Ciro searches the car manual for a way out, but he eats the book's pages out of desperation and hunger. Ciro has reached rock bottom, and to quench his thirst, he urinates in a bucket and drinks his urine. Ciro rises in hope when he sees a burglar attempting to break into the SUV a few moments later, but the people walking down the street spot the thief and beat him up before handing him over to the police. As night falls due to dehydration and hunger, Ciro transforms into a philosopher, observing how a tiny portion of the population has far more things that must be distributed so that everyone can rejoice. Ciro claims that the world is full of poor people who are subjected to laws made by rich people for rich people. He also declares that he will not comply with them, even if they shoot him. He explains that this is why he became a thief, like his father and grandfather. Enrique calls him the following day and interprets the newspaper. After spending the entire day resting and observing the people in the neighborhood, Enrique expresses his good mood and leads Ciro to a chocolate bar hidden behind the car's brakes. Ciro repeatedly strikes one of the doors, creating a tiny hole from the inside. He yells through the small hole in an attempt to attract someone's attention, but he fails. Later, Enrique calls again and admits to contacting Ciro's family. Ciro breaks down when he hears his family's name and warns Enrique not to harm them. Ciro asks, with tears in his eyes, what he has done to deserve all of these sufferings. Enrique, on the other hand, does not stop and pulls out Ciro's criminal record, revealing that Ciro has previously murdered someone. Ciro, who is crying, denies murdering anyone. Enrique has all the proof, and he exposes that Ciro broke into the Salerno brothers' home in Baracas for robbery, but when they resisted, Ciro shot them to death. Enrique also mentions an elderly bus driver who was severely abused by Ciro. On the other hand, Ciro refuses to accept responsibility and accuses the driver of not allowing him to rob the passengers. He claims he made mistakes and then claims that he has already compensated for them. After charging his phone with solar energy and attempting to call his wife, the call goes to voicemail. He admits everything to his wife and accepts responsibility for messing up everything. After confessing his mistakes, Ciro presses the car's start button, causing the engine to start. It appears that it can only start without a key after a certain number of presses. He fastens his seatbelt and shifts into reverse gear, but the gear becomes stuck, forcing him to drive in reverse. He accelerates the car and crashes into a pole to get people's attention. Fortunately, the airbag activates on time, saving him from injury. Ciro eventually escapes by kicking down the back window. Despite his excruciating pain, Ciro drags himself to a gas station restaurant and begins eating. As he savors every bite of his meal, the restaurant manager approaches him and orders him to pay for the meal and leave immediately. Ciro becomes enraged and fires his gun at the manager. Ciro then awakens from his sleep, realizing that it was all a dream and that he is still trapped in the car. Enrique calls again, and this time Ciro threatens suicide, but the former is unconcerned. Ciro, frustrated, puts his gun to his mouth and pulls the trigger, but the gun jams. Enrique laughs at the thief's anguish and asks him to look in front of the car before revealing himself and joining him in the car. Ciro was exhausted and unable to flee. Enrique notices Ciro's wound before becoming distracted by a work call, and after a while, Ciro jumps out of the car after failing to shoot Enrique, and he fires a shot into the air to summon assistance. Enrique, on the other hand, catches him again and tries to drag him back to the car. However, when a police officer notices them, she orders Enrique to drop his gun. After a few hours, people, media, and police surround the area, but Enrique refuses to let Ciro go, claiming that he is the thief's victim. When all police attempts fail, they summon retired negotiator Julio Amadeo. Julio questions Enrique about his demand. Enrique then lists various issues that he faces on a daily basis that the government ignores, claiming that at least no one was harmed. Enrique claims to have avoided 2,000 dog pieces on the street while walking to work because dog owners do not clean up after their dogs. The public sympathizes and supports Enrique, but Julio does not give up and continues to speak with him. As a result, Julio persuades Enrique to let Ciro go. The police apprehend Ciro, and Julio orders Enrique to surrender, but Enrique refuses and gets into his SUV, setting a timer. Julio suspects a bomb and orders everyone to take cover, but the SUV explodes, killing Enrique but igniting a fire in the hearts of all ordinary people. That's all for today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for more videos like this one. Leave a comment, and let us know what other movies you'd like us to review. Until next time.